This is the Blackwatch Report, your podcast covering all things Open Division and Contenders, the path to pro for Overwatch League. And here are your hosts, Thornrayne and Kyle Wynn. And welcome back for another episode of the Blackwatch Report. We're on episode number 18. Welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Thornrayne, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Kyle Wynn. How you doing tonight, Kyle?
Fantastic. I am pulling my eyes away from the rumor spreadsheet that is the Overwatch World Cup USA team confirmed, not confirmed players, so we can get this podcast going.
It's always fantastic when, important news drops in the middle of the show.
Right.
Like, it makes it real difficult to pay attention. But as always, we are going to start off with what we did this week. For me, not a whole lot. I went out to a local amusement park. If anybody is in the northeastern area of the United States, you may know it. It's called Cedar Point. It's awesome. Outside of that, I didn't get to play a whole lot this week. Dabbled a little bit in competitive, did some arcades, and then called it done because there was just a ton of PIT championship stuff to try to stay up with. So how about you, Kyle?
Let's see. I've started playing more Conan Exiles. I got back into an official server with my friends. My wife is out of town, so I've just been like nonstop gaming and not feeling too bad about it. Like go to work, come home, play games. And then we had our AC go down, which for those of you who know the Northern California area know that in summertime it gets like triple digits. And so we just got new AC installed and it is phenomenal. It's like super duper smart. I can control like the temperature from my phone and set like timers for at certain times I want it to be a certain temperature. So it is fantastic.
Oh, that's definitely awesome. Oh, and I got something really cool from the fantastic people at Funko and GameStop. I'm gonna stand up real quick.
Okay.
It's a sweet Blackwatch t-shirt. Funko released it. It came in a little loot box. It's really cool. $20 GameStop. Check it out. It's awesome. I'm not even sponsored by them. Like we're not making any money off of that. It's just a cool shirt. But speaking of the whole sponsorship thing, that's being moved. iTunes reviews, again, nothing this week. I want to say thank you again to Logical Panda for the one last week. But we had a massive influx of Twitch followers. So I want to say thank you to Froy the Boy. I'm going to butcher this, but I believe it's Berto Final Fantasy 14. Mobilities 69, ECAD, and Chili Mac 16. And then over on the YouTubes, we got one new subscriber, and that is Mr. Richard Kristian. Thank you very much, everyone. We are now officially one follower away from hitting the 50 followers mark on Twitch, which will then put us into the eligibility for affiliate. So if you want to be number 50 and get a special shout out on next week's episode, go ahead and hit that follow button. I'll appreciate it. I'll appreciate it. It'd be awesome.
Play the cool party horn.
Oh yeah, I will find an awesome party like sounder and we will play it when we say your name on the show next week. That is for sure. But that's going to wrap up all of our little pleasantries at the beginning. So let's roll down into the news.
Cool. Starting it off, we got word recently that XL2 has released the player Midnight, who was their off-tank player. I assume this was probably not on Midnight. I feel like he seemed a little bit bitter about it based on the Twitter comments and various posts. But I think one of the main complaints we had about XL2 was their tank lane being a little underwhelming, and Midnight was half of that. So hopefully they can get a better off tank to support the other players that they have, because they have a lot of really, really good players, but they just had a very underwhelming contender season.
Yeah, extremely underwhelming. But moving on along, we saw a couple weeks ago that the head coach for Toronto Esports had left the organization, looking to move up into the Overwatch League ranks. Well, we just got confirmation that they have announced their new head coach, and that is Vivid, formerly coach of O2 Ardeont. So welcome Vivid into the Toronto Esports Club up there.
Cool. Moving on, we have some EU stuff. I think they were the Open Division champions, it says here. Northern Lights announces a new roster, which is Meza, who I think is Portuguese. The name sounds familiar. Or no, Romania, I think it's what the RO is. Riverboat, never heard of. Vineless, never heard of. Zakor and Kotsu names. And then I think Envision was from Norway, and their name sounds familiar. So there's a couple of names that I do know on here. And since they are a pretty accomplished team in Open Division, good for them for bolstering that roster.
Yeah, and a little more EU news. We've got Eagle Gaming releasing Kryw?
I think it's just Kryw.
Kryw? Releasing
Yeah.
Kryw. I don't remember off of the top of my head what exactly Kryw played. I want to say he was a DPS, but
Yeah. I think he was I remember him, his like two main heroes were and he's been a player since like beta phase 1. He was on I think a team with he's on like one of the early Misfits rosters or the Rogue kind of rosters, played along with that like whole group of people. He played a lot of Pharah and he played a lot of Zarya. He was really good at both of those heroes.
Yes, Liquipedia has him as signature hero Zarya. Yeah, he was Misfits Luminosity. He went over to Bench Boys, Ice Block, and then just recently with leaving Eagle Gaming. He started out with Melty Esports.
Okay. Melty became Misfits.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember my OG Overwatch history.
It takes a lot in my old brain to remember some of that stuff.
It's fair. It's a big nostalgia trip for me with a lot of these older named players. I'm like, oh, I remember them from like a the weeklies, the Ghost of Gamers weeklies and all that kind of stuff.
The monthly melees, those are good times.
Yeah, exactly. So our last bit of news, it's more EU stuff. And this is the team Six Snakes, who I've never heard of before, but I've heard of like half the people on this team have acquired the Mosaics Esports contender spot for EU Contenders season 2, 3, whatever the next one is, because there was like season 0, then 1, and then now it's like the new 1, and then so the next season that starts in like July. Which wasn't there like news on that we totally didn't get up here at all?
Yeah, they announced the starting date. I believe it is the second week in July.
I think it was like July 7th is what I saw.
For NA. I'm actually pulling up some stuff right now.
Okay. Yeah, that sounded. I guess in the meantime, while you do that, I will list down the roster. On DPS, we've got Asking and Nesh. I think Nesh was like a German player. Name sounds familiar. On the off tank, it's Hayko. Main tank is ChrisTFer, who we all know. And then on supports, we've got khave and kodaK. I think kodaK is somewhat familiar, but it could just be a duplicate name. I'm not super duper sure, but a couple of popular names on that roster. Do you have
the Contenders website right now is being a little bit of an issue?
Oh, well, we could probably do that later, I guess, or maybe next episode.
I was trying to also look and see because I thought Six Snakes was Mosaic.
Oh, maybe because I thought ChrisTFer was on there, so maybe
because after the organization screwed everybody over and kind of the ownership pulled out, they stayed together.
Oh, and it's just ChrisTFer and kodaK, I think, just the tank and support. but I think
Okay.
everyone else is new on that team.
Okay.
Just looking at like Wikipedia, that's what it tells me, and I trust it.
Yeah, that's where I get a lot of my information from players and stuff from. They're pretty trustworthy over there. But that's going to move us right along. That's the last little bit of news that we have. It's time for a little bit of sponsorship. As always, we've got the Rogue Energy. You can break away from your normal energy and go rogue. Go to therogueenergy.com and use promo code BlackwatchReport at checkout to get 10% off of your purchase. They just released their brand new fourth flavor, and that is the blue raspberry flavor, and they have a sweet new gold shaker that you can pick up over there. It's pretty nice stuff. So that's going to move us down into the quick play now. So we're going to start with the PIT Invitational upper bracket. For the first match, we had Envision versus Karasuno. You'll remember Karasuno from Open Division coming in second behind Goats, finishing and also playing in the beat. I don't remember off the top of my head where they finished in there. I know they weren't top. I don't believe they were top 4. I want to say I know. But in the pit, we have Envision taking them down 3-0 quite easily. So Kyle, what do you got?
So we have seen last time Envision brought in Fisher, not the Korean tank player, but Fisher from I think Denmark, the Danish team, I think something like that. But he was in that spot that was previously Jaru's. Now they're filling it with Facility, who has been looking pretty solid with them. And then they started out on Ilios, and that was his first map where we saw Facility, and he looked really, really good. And then we also saw that Bud's not only on the Widowmaker, but on the Hanzo as well here, and his Hanzo's been a heck of a lot better. We saw it a little bit in beat, but it's significantly improved since then.
Oh yeah. And I don't know where I was gonna go with that. Sorry. I pressed down my talk button at the wrong moment.
Because you have a note for this, correct? Or
yeah, just in the actual the match bit is if we're getting into that, there was actually a point where Buds had thrown out, it was on Ilios, I want to say it was on Lighthouse. Buds throws out his Dragon Strike, and it's not really getting anybody, and McGravy's got a whole line of people in front of him, and he hits Whole Hog, and he throws a whole group of people into the Dragon Strike and gets like a 2-kill with the combination of the Whole Hog Dragon Strike. Not the typical, CC or, movement control ultimate that we see paired with a Dragon Strike, but it was really cool to see it work out. It was definitely a perfectly timed combination there.
Yeah. We saw McGravy doing a lot of really good Roadhog stuff. He's mostly just known for playing a bunch of D.Va, but his Zarya has improved quite a bit, and his Hog has improved a significant amount since we've seen it.
Oh yeah.
But moving on to the other side of this, on Karasuno's side, their Guru is the D.Va for Karasuno, eats Facility's Dragon Strike, and then literally 10 seconds later on, this is both on Ruins, then literally 10 seconds later, McGravy eats Boostios. So it's a thing that we've seen a lot more, and it's kind of good that teams are starting to learn how to adapt to playing against Hanzos, and like you have a new list of things that you need to make sure you're doing as like a D.Va player. Whenever you hear that voice line start, try to remember where the Hanzo is and just aim your defense matrix, because as we'll see later, you can eat a Dragon Strike through a wall, which is super interesting because I think the arrow penetrates a wall and doesn't turn into a dragon for a certain amount of distance. It doesn't go based on when it hits the wall. So it's super interesting, like the way that the arguments work for that, why it does that versus why it doesn't. But
I didn't even catch that.
It was, I forget where it was. I have it on a note later on, and we can talk about it a bit more, but it's super interesting. So that was Ilios, and Envision took Ilios. I mean, they took all 3 of these. Then they took Eichenwald next. They played a Widow Pharah defense, and it worked extremely well for them. I think that they got full held. If not, then it almost was a full hold. It was just like if they did take it, they took it like scraped by in the last second. And then one of the issues was Karasuno kept kind of trying to walk in and just lost one to the Widow, lost one to the Pharah over and over and over. One of their only shining lights on this map was that Boostio got a pretty good Widow 3K, but for the most part, they just needed to work on their engages because they were kind of a little disjointed. Moving on to our final map on Temple of Anubis. They had a really, really, really solid play of just the most clean and crisp dive we've ever seen, taking A, and then I think they snowballed it onto B pretty quickly, but they lost a couple. All they had left was Genji, Tracer, and Zenyatta, and they still were able to take it, which is pretty cool to see. And then on their defense round, once Karasuno took A, and Buzz has been doing this pretty much every single time, but he's been doing extremely well, is the swapping to the Sombra on Anubis point B on defense.
Yeah, he absolutely loves a point B Sombra. And the thing with him on Temple of Anubis also is on their defense. I believe it was point A at the start of their defense. Goes on a 15 kill streak. Just absolutely insane, not letting anybody through. It was great to watch. Because we know Buds is phenomenal on the Widow, but yeah, once you get Buds to second point on Anubis, you can almost guarantee that he's going to flip over to Sombra, hack the health pack down below, and I swear he never gets less than 3 in his EMPs. Most of the time he's getting like 5, 6s. He's just a phenomenal Sombra player. It's great to watch. I love watching him on Anubis. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. But that does it for Envision versus Karasuno. Karasuno now moved down to the losers bracket. Envision will continue on.
And with that, it takes us to our second match of the upper bracket, which was Grizzlies Esports versus last night's Leftovers. And man, the Leftovers kind of did work here. They beat the Grizzlies 3-1 in pretty dominant fashion. It was good watching the Leftovers play at a better level than what we've seen in some of the other tournaments. So Kyle, what do you got for this one?
So first off, I have one note on all of Lijiang Tower, which Grizzlies took both rounds of in Control Center and Gardens, is that we saw in Beat, LNL would run a 3 DPS with Sugar Free, Enlar, and Reach, I believe it was, on those 3 DPS heroes, with occasionally Sugar Free would play the Diva or Enlar would play the Zarya if needed. But for the most part, it was always 3 DPS, and it totally didn't work both rounds. And they ran double flanker into a Brigida on the side of Grizzlies, which just destroyed them. Specifically on Control Center, it was like brutal. So maybe they want to be a little bit more situational with when they bring these players in. It's just overall not working out a ton for them. But then moving into Numbani, Grizzlies had a pretty good stall out on their defense. Kind of kept LNL away for a little bit, but I think they played a Sombra here, it says. That's what my note says, but I don't remember that at all.
On the Numbani, it was, because I actually have it, on the attack for last night's Leftovers, Enlar had a pretty nice EMP that turned into a 3K for him.
Right.
So again, seeing Sombra's actually coming through kind of clutch there.
Yeah, it's definitely like a nice niche pick, which I do appreciate. She's not like the must pick. Every team needs to run her all the time, but like there are definitely some really good situations where as long as you play it well, you can get really good value out of it.
Yep.
But after they got that first cap, after getting stalled out a little bit, they basically just rolled all the way to the end, no problem. Moving on to Hanamura, we saw Grizzlies do the Zen Ana defense, which is really, really good if any team runs tanks into you, because first off, you have the Zenyatta to Discord, which means that everything takes more damage. Or not anything, but a particular target. And then Ana has the really good Bionade, which destroys all the healing towards them. And especially because these tank comps play grouped up, it's really, really easy to get like a 3 or 4 person Bionade. But then on the other side, Sugar Free has just been going like absolutely ham here. He had a moment where normally you see like the tanks create space for the DPS. So they dive in, get aggressive, force people to get out of position so that they will get picked off. Instead, it's like the exact opposite. Sugar Free is like a very aggro Genji, but he forces mistakes out of the Grizzlies so that Nex and D-Cut can take advantage of that and take those targets that are like in a weird spot.
Oh yeah, and speaking of Nex, on their first defense, well, their only defense, it's on point A. He's playing D.Va. He spins around when he hears the Tracer pulse bomb sound bite go off. He eats the Tracer's pulse bomb, throws up his self-destruct, and gets a 2K and just completely clears the point off and just shuts down the whole attack. Prevents Grizzlies from going any further. Grizzlies got to pull out. It was one of those where we're seeing more and more of the D.Va players just eating things. These guys are super quick. As soon as they hear that first little bit of a voice line, they're spinning around and finding where that character is and just hitting the defense matrix. It was a really quick play, and it was awesome to see from Nex. I mean, we've talked about it with coming out of Goats, and then Envision, and just now seeing last night's Leftovers kind of doing some of the things that hadn't seen them doing. It's really cool to see that they're stepping their game up here.
Yeah, they definitely feel like an improved team.
Yep.
Part of it was definitely due to the meta. Part of it is due to Sugar Free just kind of having a really good streak of games recently. But I think that overall, it seems like their team play has improved a bunch, especially with their newer additions, because a lot of the flaws in the previous team are kind of seemed to go away once they picked up certain new players to kind of fill those spots that weren't doing what they should have been doing. But moving into Dorado, which was our fourth and final map here, giving LNL the win over Grizzlies, was Dorado. And one of the things I did want to point out here, kind of just overall as a summary to this, I think Grizzlies might want to reset the whole roster, because it seems like for the most part, except for Zapre, things just don't seem to be working that well. So I think like he's the one consistent shining light here, specifically on Tracer and Widow. But I think outside of that, the whole team has been kind of underwhelming. So maybe do some readjustments of the members. We've seen a lot of teams do that if they didn't get like a good success.
And I mean, as far as like when I'm watching him, he's really the only one that I ever have anything to take notes down on. I mean, every once in a while, Graceful will do something like he ate a Graviton early on in Hanamura, but outside of that, said Zapri is pretty much like the backbone of the team. Build a team around him. There's plenty of players out there that you could probably find that would be an upgrade for your current roster.
Yeah, definitely. But then finally, my last note for this matchup was the halt into D.Va Bomb combo. I think there was a D.Va Bomb out. I think this was on first point. The D.Va Bomb was like right outside of the fountain and the little room on the left hand side if you're from defender's perspective. And then the halt came out, pulled everyone, it pulled like 3 out into the open, and the D.Va Bomb hit him. So I always love really seeing those because I don't think it was necessarily like set up by the team. They're like, okay, well, I'm gonna throw D.Va Bomb and then I'm gonna halt. it was like Diva bombs up, but they're hiding, and then the main tank was like, oh wait, I can just pull that in, and then gets a 3K. So it's always really cool to see.
Oh yeah. So with that, it's going to take us into the second day of the Pit Invitational, and that is Fusion University versus Goats. This was the one that everybody was wondering about how it was going to play out, and it didn't play out the way a lot of people expected it to. Goats take it 3-1. Goats played against Fusion University pretty well. I know that Elk came out and said that, no coach, like 4 hours of scrim time, no translator to be able to translate. I mean, it's what it is. Fusion still took the L. So Kyle, what do you got?
This was we came in here, we're like, okay, well, maybe Goats was just a fluke. Maybe FU is gonna come in here and put them in their place. They didn't. We found out that Goats is actually like a pretty good team. They're actually like really, really good. A lot of the critique is that they only run one thing, but we've seen them kind of say, no, we haven't, and play dive and do that well as well. But one of the main issues is we see a way to beat this. And specifically on Li Zhang, Fusion University showed us how to beat this comp. And it was incredibly like well coordinated from them to first off play the Pharah. Who Are You played, I mean, in both days of this, he played maybe 80 to 90% Pharah on every map, basically. Because what the Goats comp cannot do is rain at all. They get decimated by Widowmakers, but they don't have a lot of sightlines for Widowmakers. So Widow is a little harder to run, but Pharah, on the other hand, can launch rockets behind the shields, break the shields, kind of be uncontested. And so Who Are You did this, as well as the strategy to play split up within line of sight and kind of play around the team. So you don't have one particular direction for the Goats to go. You kind of have to make them play different. Okay, well, there's the Tracer over here, or the Pharah over here. You've got like a Junkrat over there. You got the Zen on this one spot, and then you're being pressured by the Diva over here. So it's kind of not one team versus one team. It's one team versus a bunch of other players trying to screw up that one team. One of the things is on the side of Fusion University, Who Were You's Pharah was doing incredibly well. Especially when combined with Beast Halo, who would continually get really, really huge shatters, and then Who Are You would come in with like a 3-4K barrage. And then Zachary and the Junkrat on Li Zhang Tower as well was like pretty much consistently getting 2K tires, which is not that hard because the Goats are always playing so close. But it was still impressive to see nonetheless. And then my notes on the Goats for Li Zhang is that they brought in Lethal on flex support. I forget who they were playing with previously on their flex support role. But Lethal was in, and he's been looking solid as well. But the one downside is that I mentioned before, they kept getting shattered, and if they got shattered, they basically got wiped because Fusion is really good at cleaning up Earth shatters. Moving into Numbani, and this is where the Goats kind of just pick up momentum. Fusion has some pretty good moments here and there. They had almost a really good defense on second, but I'm calling it a soon C9 because it's not necessarily like I would just completely get off in overtime, but it's where you don't contest it, and then like a player sneaks in just the last little bit of the payload. And it was in the same spot that like Soon did in stage 1. And this was after Fusion University won the fight, but they still let the Goats get that final like 3 meters and get the unlock for the next point. On the other side, Sit has been exploding on this Tracer, continually just pulse bombing Elk. He's stuck like more than half of all of his pulse bombs onto the Mercy, which is pretty good to see. Like, it's not easy to do, definitely. And then after both teams make it all the way through, we go into second rounds, and then on the Goats defense, Wavy has an incredibly clutch play that I think you have more information on, because I forget what even happened. I just wrote that Wavy comes up clutch.
Well, I have something that just ties into the second round defense. So I don't remember exactly what Wavy did, but I want to talk about who we're going to be doing a profile on this Friday, Mr. Kryw. We've seen people in Twitch chat. I want to say it was Ajax who called Kryw best off tank NA. And the way this played out, second defense, Numbani, Kryw gets a 2K on Elk and Crackalacken with his self-destruct. Remix, and then proceeds to destroy Beast Halo, Zachary, and Alarm to completely shut them down and win the map. They closed out, like, Kryw basically closed out the map for the Goats. Like, it was amazing. I went back and I had to watch it 3 times just so I could see everything that he did. Because he takes out, like, I want to say he takes out Alarm first with micro missiles, and then he spins around and he takes out Beast Halo with just his cannons, and then he charges into Zachary as he's firing. This dude was everywhere at the end of this map. Like, it was insane how well how coordinated he was with his surroundings and where everyone was. So well done, Kryw. Well done.
And continuing it on to Hanamura, where Goats took the took the W on this one, excuse me. This was a high rounds game. This was a 5-4. I wanted to make sure that I got that noted down, because this was back and forth, lots of high time bank caps. But the one I wanted to really point out was on Goats' first attack, they just walk onto A. They don't stop at all. They just walk onto it, get a couple of picks here and there. All of Fusion is dead. They move on to B, walk onto it, get a couple of picks, keep the respawns at bay, capped all the way. 6:37 left in the time bank, which is ridiculous. It took them, that is a minute and like 23 seconds, if I'm doing math correct.
Yep, you are.
Both of those to, like, from the time that they left the spawn door to the time the ticks on point B went all the way around, which is ridiculous. But on the side of Fusion University, they did put up a pretty good fight with the fair Junkrat again, but I think that there still needs to be a little bit more work put into this, because I think that, like, the pieces are here. We've seen on Lijiang that it is very possible to beat this team. They are not a invincible team. There's just, it takes not only the smart comp, which Fusion has found, it not only takes the smart team play and positioning, which Fusion has found, but it's also the execution that needs to be better. And I think that's the one thing that FU is kind of missing out on, is their execution of these particular strats, which they have to be new, because Goats have only been this dominant for like 3 weeks. So these are our new strats. They still have to be worked out. They still have to be run through, over and over and over, understanding where to be in what particular scenario. So I think it's going to take a little while, but in the end, Goats took the Hanamura, and moving into Dorado, they took this as well. And they tried, as they have always done on Dorado, the really, really close defense. But again, Fusion University did their homework here, and they went far Junkrat to start out and destroyed them, and then got some good momentum going. And then on their own defense, we saw some really good Widow play from Zachary, but the unfortunate thing was, no matter how many picks he was getting, his whole team was dead on the payload, and it's really hard for Widow to contest payload and get kills. And so he was like getting 2, the whole backline of the Ghost was dead. And then, then the rest of the Ghosts just pushed to the payload end, and Zachary couldn't really do much. And then Alarm was continually getting really, really good kills on Dorado, but all in all, it really just didn't push him over the edge to get the win here. So Goats moved on the winners bracket and kicked Fusion University down to the lower bracket, a place they've only been in once before. And that was after losing to Envision in the beat, I think it was.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we called them the God Killers last week. Like, these are the guys that are beating the teams that you don't expect them to beat, and they're doing it, pretty convincingly. But that's going to take us into our last matchup for day 2, and that's going to be NRG versus Mirage Esports. NRG takes this 3-1. So Kyle, what do we got on this little one?
So Energy, I've never heard of Mirage Esports before in my life, but I know Jesus. And he's really, 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 really good. I don't necessarily know if he is quite like high contenders level. I don't know if he is, but I was gonna say I don't know if he's worthy of that like Fusion University, Envision, Toronto Esports League, but like I don't know where these teams rank anymore. I have no idea. If we did power rankings, I would just put like Goats on here, and just have every other team like kind of just right below them, because I don't know. I mean, maybe Karasuno and Mirage are below that, but like I think Jesus is definitely better than the rest of his team. And that's no, I'm not certain on that. It could just be maybe they just enable him and kind of play around him, but it just definitely seems like he's the one that's really pulling his weight and trying to pull everyone else's weight as well. Because whether it be on Widow, which is like his absolute best hero here, or on Tracer, he's also looked pretty solid there as well. He's just been nonstop getting all of the kills for his team. But on Ilios, we saw Poise on the other side on the NRG play the McCree. And one of the weird things on McCree is he's either like destroying your entire team or just straight feeding. And on this particular Lighthouse map, he was not feeding. He was destroying all of Mirage, just getting nonstop headshots. Anytime my flanker tried to come in, flashbang, fan the hammer, or flashbang headshot, done. So NRG took that. Eichenwald went to NRG as well. We saw a lot of really good Hanzo picks start the fight on A. And then on their defense, once Mirage did eventually take the first point, NRG was holding them actually at the spawn doors and not like holding them for a second, getting a kill and running back, or not just like holding them at the spawn doors, their whole team gets wiped and then they have to reset in the far back. No, they were like actually killing the attackers in their spawn for like 15 seconds, 20, 30 seconds, over and over and over.
And then even when they did pull out, the Pharaoh was still getting picks as they were coming out of the door. Like, they literally wouldn't let them leave the spawn for, like you said, like it's in total, it was probably like 35 to 40 if you factor in the time Pharaoh was just bombarding the spawn door. It was pretty insane.
Definitely. And then on the side of Mirage, there was a good point where Fika got a 3K Diva Bomb. I think this was right before the castle doors, where NRG was holding them and it was down to overtime. He got the 3K Diva Bomb, but there was not enough to no other teammates there with him, so they ended up losing that fight, which is unfortunate. Moving on to Anubis, Mirage actually took this one. Despite the fact that Mirage has had kind of terrible ult usage. Like they are pretty good at like when to use ults, but the problem is like how they use them has been kind of lackluster. There was, I thought it was maybe, no, it was a different team I was trying to think of, but they definitely had some pretty poor ult usage. It was later on. There was a really terrible ult use, but I'll talk about that later. But on the side of NRG, there was a 2K Diva Bomb into a 3K Tower, which I thought was kind of funny to see. And then on Route 66, NRG came back and secured their third win, moving them as farther along the upper bracket.
And down on Route 66, there's a moment right before they get the payload to the point B door. This is the NRG attack. Smex is just peppering the door. He's on Roadhog. He comes around the corner. He throws his hook. He hooks Haku on Zenyatta, pulls him in, and then left clicks. And not only kills Haku, but then he gets Math with with one left click. He kills Haku and Math, who's standing behind Haku, and just completely deletes both of them. One shot. It was one of the cool. It's another one of those plays where I had to go back and rewatch it because I was like, did he just kill two people with one shot? And yeah, sure enough, one shot from Roadhog taking out two people. It definitely, if you want to go watch a cool clip, I might actually go clip it and share it because it's really, really awesome. But that's basically all I had on this map or this matchup. And that's going to take us down into our lower bracket matchups. And man, this next one, it's going to be a fast one because it was Karasuna versus Grizzlies, and it went the way of the Grizzlies 3-0. And Kyle, what kind of notes you got on it?
I got no notes. I didn't want to even take notes on this because it was so fast, and I wanted to try to, not end before 5:30, or
And
to end before 5:30. Yeah.
And I did the exact same thing.
So we move on to the next one.
Which was Fusion University making their run in the lower bracket against Mirage Esports. And Mirage put up a fight. Fusion takes this 3-2. Again, we see Fusion University go into that ever, so faithful map 5. Unfortunately, it was not Oasis. They had to fight in a new map 5 this time. So Kyle, what do we got?
So one of the things that I did notice about the fact that Who Are You is on this Pharah, when Who Are You is on Tracer or Genji, he is able to just straight carry a lot more than he is with the Pharah. The Pharah kind of requires a little bit more support. It requires a little bit more restraint. And so there's only so much you can do with the Pharah. There's a definite ceiling on your impact that you can have. And I think Who Are You is like bumping against that ceiling like Pharah is on the Skybox. And so I think that this is part of the reason that Fusion has such a difficult time in this particular meta, is because he's a really, really good Genji and Tracer. But Genji and Tracer, as EQO will tell you, is countered by Brigitte.
Yep.
And so I think on the other side of this, we saw Matt H play the Pharah. And the one thing I had to start out on the side of Mirage with the NRG matches, he was non-existent. He was not doing a whole lot. I'm like, who is this guy and why is he on this team? Jesus is getting like 4 times the amount of kills, but now he's kind of starting to wake up here, and his Pharah was getting a lot more damage, a lot more kills going. But then on Control Center, I mentioned Mirage's terrible ult usage. Well, I don't know if I've seen this in competitive play since like beta, but there was a no one in it Graviton that Fika launches out in Control Center. Not a soul is anywhere near it, and he launches it out and gets no one. That's just a weird one, because obviously with Pulse Bomb, if you miss, who cares? Like, you get it in another, like, minute and a half. Graviton takes a while, Like, you need to really make sure when you launch that thing out, it's not going to get eaten by a D.Va, and you get, like, at least the supports, maybe more than that. But, like,
yeah,
what was that? Yeah.
I completely missed that. I didn't even see that. I might have to go back and rewatch that, because,
But then on Numbani, we saw, so Fusion University took Li Jiang. On Numbani, here's where Mirage kind of made their mark. Haku got this was an interesting thing. I started late into the VOD. I'm like, wait a second, why is this team, where's the Zenyatta? Oh, wait, he's on Genji. Because Haku does the Shaz and switches to the Genji on Numbani attack and gets 2 kills. And then that's A. There's A for you. And then they make the switch to Torbjorn. And it also works pretty well. And they go almost to the end. and I think they do complete it out. And then Fusion on the other side kept getting picked, and just they would start to engage and then lose one. Then they'd come in again, lose like two, and then they just kept losing time and losing time. So by the time they did make it towards the end, all they needed to do was get wiped once, and then that was the win for Mirage.
And speaking on the getting picked, you could definitely tell that Who Are You was playing on a higher ping, because not once, but a couple times throughout both of the series, we see him, whiff his dragon blades. But there was a pretty rough one here. Jesus just looks up into the sky and sees an alting Who Are You falling down, and just casually tosses a pulse bomb straight up in the air and catches him dead center in the chest, and then blinks away, and bye-bye Dragon Blade. Throughout both of these series, we saw it a couple times where Who Are You kind of hits his Dragon Blade mid-air, and as he's falling, someone takes him out. It wasn't uncommon to see it. We didn't see it in the playoff, or in the finals, when he was on the no ping servers. So you can definitely tell that he's playing at a pretty big disadvantage with his ping right now.
Definitely. And we're going to see that kind of carry over into Hanamura as well, where Matt is continually getting really good picks with the Hanzo. And then kind of one of the downsides to Mirage is that I mentioned how phenomenal Jesus was on Widowmaker, but his Tracer was not like anything to write home about. It was like serviceable at best. So I think that, if it ever becomes a non-Widow meta, he's going to need to really work on something else, or he's going to fall to the wayside. But on the other side, so basically my point here is that Mirage was running like a pit comp. They're running the Hanzo, they're running the Widowmaker. And Fusion University has had a hard time this meta with getting picked. They keep losing one or two to start out team fights, and you either have to like take the 5v6 and try to just work it out, or you like run back and wait, 15 seconds for your team member to get back. So I think that one of the things that they'll need to work on is ensuring that they're playing at the same time, engaging at the same time. And I know that's super difficult because they mentioned, I think Elk tweeted this out, that their translator was out. They had like a family emergency, so they're missing out on the translator. So obviously this is not like mid-match translating, but still this team definitely looks like they are not in sync like they used to be. And so part of that could be the loss of their coach. Part of that could be the temporary loss of their translator. But fortunately for them, they were able to kind of pull it together for Dorado, where Zachary showed us that he's really good at Tracer. And I was, I almost forgotten about that. I'm like, this Widow guy is on Tracer now. Oh yeah, he was like a really good Tracer before that, and he was like phenomenal. And he like absolutely showed up and destroyed all of Mirage on their attack run. And then so they end up taking that. Moving on to Ilios. Zachary again. The guy is definitely like streaky, and he's not like always consistent, but when he is up, he is way up. And on Well, he was just destroying the entire team. Just boom, boom, body shot, headshot, headshot. But one of the cool things was Math did have a really cool midair shot onto Huryu's ulting Genji, which I wanted to point out. But that was Fusion University scraping by against a team that has one player that I've ever heard of, which is kind of something to say about how much this meta has changed who we perceive to be the best teams.
Oh yeah, definitely. The new meta, it's just the start. Like, we see Goats with their tank comp. Fusion kind of starting to figure out, the tank buster comp. But until everything kind of settles, we're gonna see shifts and peaks and valleys on who's at the top, who's at the bottom. But as long as Goats continues to run the tank comp, I think that they're gonna be up at the top for quite a while. Bold prediction. Actually, it's not that bold. It's probably everybody's prediction at this point. Goats is getting out of trials. They're taking one of the contender spots away from either Grizzlies, last night leftovers, bye week, Simplicity. We don't even know what's going on with Simplicity right now. They might end up selling their spot because they haven't played in it. Both of the tournaments they were supposed to play in, they've backed out of. So trials is right around the corner. So we got to see what's going on.
Aren't goats not? So I don't know exactly what the extent. We'll find out Friday what exactly that means, but there are some sort of bans from Overwatch tournaments, from official Blizzard tournaments for quite a number of members of the goats, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that is correct. Well,
so I'm
correct from everything that we currently know.
Okay. So we'll find out more about this on Friday, but I don't know what this is going to mean because I think it would be from a non-moral perspective, right? It would be just an absolute shame to miss out on seeing what this storyline turns into. And I fear that this is going to be another one of those Defran situations where it was just like so much potential. They could have absolutely done incredible things, but then they done messed up. And so it could be one of those situations. So I guess we'll have to find out what exactly comes in the future. We are hoping to be as on the cutting edge of this stuff as possible in terms of information and what is going to happen for these teams.
And hopefully on Friday, because right now there's a ton of rumors about who's banned, who isn't banned, you know, who's changing roles, who's not going to be a player, who's going to be a coach, you know, tons of rumors right now. And hopefully Friday we're able to clear a lot of that stuff up about goats, because the run that they've done has been pretty amazing. They're not beating open division teams right now. They're beating the champions of contenders, you know, the third place team in contenders, you know, other teams that were in contenders. So it kind of would be a shame, even though there's those issues that we're talking about, to not see these guys get a chance to play at the next level. Like I'm not gonna lie, we're gonna talk about this a little bit later, the Overwatch World Cup theory crafting spreadsheet. I was expecting to see one, maybe two goats on there, but you know, now we can't. Like, kind of sucks. But that's gonna wrap that portion up. We're gonna move right into the final matchup of the week, and that was Envision versus last night's leftovers. And man, were the leftovers just doling out food poisoning this week. Last night's leftovers take Envision. Yes, they beat Envision 3-2. They went the distance. So Kyle, what do we got on this matchup?
So before we move on to the map breakdown, I want to say something that what's going to happen, I think, in the next couple of days, we're going to have Envision versus Fusion University, who are very often like touted as rivals and both phenomenal teams. One of the two of them is going to knock the other out of the tournament before we even get to like semifinals. Or yeah.
The 10th, I believe, the first day of the next set of matches, those two face off, and that's insane.
One of the top 4 teams in all of North America in the tier 2 scene is about to knock each other out, and a team who didn't make it out of groups is moving on. Who else? NRG didn't make it out of groups, is moving on.
Last night's
Grizzlies
leftovers
is moving on. Yeah, so there's just a bunch of teams, like everything is just flipped right now. It's the weirdest situation.
We're living Stranger Things, and we're in the upside down.
We're in the upside down. Exactly.
That's what this is, people.
But Red Start, who was the sub-in, is not the Demogorgon. He was more like I can't remember her name. I think it was Pam or something like that.
Pam. She went away early.
By the way, if you haven't watched season 1 and you're like, why are you spoiling it? Like, come on, bruh. How long is it? It's been out for like 3 years.
Yeah, we're almost to season 3. Get with it.
But anyways, Red Start, who was the player that was brought in for the first 2 maps in that Facility spot that was also Fisher spot that was previously Jaro spot. Wow, this guy, I don't know if this was a sub last minute thing, like Facilities like had to finish up work or something and couldn't start early, or if it was like a time difference thing or his internet was out, or if they're just trying out this player, but like I was not very impressed. Red Start had a very minimal impact. Both maps made Buds do a lot more than he should have. Put Buds on the either the Widow or the and the Brigade as well, which is unfortunate. But that's I got a note for that later with a little sad face. But didn't play either Hanzo or Widow, so Buds had to switch between both of those, which you can't run. Like if you can't run double sniper, it's kind of rough to do. But on the other side, we saw LNL continuing to try to run the 3 DPS. This time it was not on Li Zhang. This was on Ilios. And it worked a bit better here. But I think it was not necessarily because LNL like played it better and they like improved and figured out what they needed to do, and more because Envision just looked a little lost in this particular stage. But then moving on to Eichenwald, Buds was doing some really good work on McCree. Red Start not really doing much as well, but I think in this particular instance, Buds was doing enough on McCree to kind of carry the team to the victory here and cap it out. On the other side, though, Sugarfree and Dogman, who I think were definitely like the 2 shining lights of this team. Like if you're like reworking a Contenders team or like a academy team, and you want to like pick up 2 from this team, you need to pick up Dogman and Sugarfree. They are absolutely definitively the 2 best players on this team by a pretty decent margin. Dogman has been nonstop getting like about a third of the kills on his team, it looks like. And then Sugarfree, both with barrages and dragon blades, and the guy's really good on Tracer, the guy's really good on Genji, the guy's really good on Pharah, the guy's really good on Diva if they need to play it. This guy's definitely kind of on the same level that Jesus the player. In that I think that he probably deserves a better team at this point. I'm not knocking on LNL. I think they are a really good team, but I definitely don't think that like I still think that Sugarfree is above that.
Oh, yeah. Just something I want to point out for the Eichenwald map. Between the gate after they take the payload up to point B, we saw Sugarfree barrage on Pharah and get, I believe it was a 3K. Switch to Genji, get a 2K and clear off the payload, and then switch to Zarya and go off tank in a 3-tank comp, all before they got to point B. Sugarfree is one of the most versatile players I like in the Contenders levels, because all 3 of those the characters that he played just in that short stretch of that payload run, he was like the shining light on that map for that team. So please someone pay this man. I want to see. I'll buy a Sugarfree jersey. I don't even care what team he's on. I'll buy it right now. Let's do it.
I'm down. But moving on, so unfortunately, as good as Sugarfree is, he was not able to LeBron this team to a win. So Envision took Eichenwald, and then Envision also took Anubis, which is where Facility comes back in, which it's like everything just kind of matches back into, the puzzle pieces complete. It's like in all those nerdy movies where they get the cipher and then they have to solve the puzzle, and then as soon as they click it, if you're clicking, the music gets all loud, and then the light starts exploding from it, and it starts floating, and everything's like perfect, and the universe is complete. That was like when Facility came back in, because we went from like Bud's trying to do everything on this team to like now Facility's like headshot, headshot, headshot with the Hanzo, destroying shields back and forth, getting key picks. It's just something else entirely. And then Bud's again on Sombra here, really, really, really giving Ajax a tough time. Just always on him and always getting like kills too. It's not like, you know, attack the Mercy. Okay, Mercy's flying away. Cool, well, they're gonna take a second. No, it's like attack the Mercy. Oh my god, Mercy's dead. And then same with the Widow as well, also getting really, really good value on that.
Oh yeah. I said it earlier. Buds loves that second point. Sombra, you know, quality EMPs left and right. But then we got to see him switch over to Doomfist for the a small amount of time just to get back real quick. And in the, I don't know, 15-20 seconds that he was on Doomfist, I want to say he got 3 kills. It was uppercut to a baby diva, ground slam to finish her off, and then the charge punch into a blinking tracer into the wall, all in the matter of like 2 seconds. Like, it was insane. He's another one of those ones who just, you put him on a character and he figures it out, and he's really, really good at it. Again, I believe we might be able to see him in something coming up a little bit later. But that's all I've got on Temple of Anubis there.
Yeah, my last note for this, I mentioned it when talking about Buds, but Ajax kept getting picked, and so what I'm thinking is maybe it's not entirely Ajax's fault. We did kind of criticize him a while when it was him and Dummy on the team, and they continually got picked off on their own. So it could be that. I also think it could just be the team kind of leaving him out to dry a bit. So maybe they need to play a little bit more around the Mercy to not let the Mercy get picked as often. But moving on to Route 66, we kind of saw Envision have that same issue where their support said quite a lot here. Specifically, Fire. Crimzo was usually dying pretty early as well, but Fire was usually one of the first ones to die in most team fights, which is really unfortunate because Facility shut down 2 separate Dragon Blades as Hanzo, which is kind of pretty awesome to see, but also really kind of difficult to do. Because Hanzo, if you get slashed once, I'm pretty sure you die, or at least slash dashed once. So he was able to get that quick pick and annihilate Sugar Free on his Dragon Blades. But on the other side of that, Dogman and Sugar Free again just getting nonstop phenomenal kills, dragging out time, killing supports, and then we're able to pick up the win there, sending this to our map 5 on Lijiang Tower, where we saw it's a pretty big tragedy. It's Buds on Brigida. It's worse than the tragedy of Darth Plagueis. The dude shield charged off of the map in the very first fight, which, if that's not a sign that like you mentioned that Buds has a knack of like just playing it here and figuring it out, there's probably some sort of like reverse magnetism, like when you try to put 2 positive side magnets together and they kind of like push each other. Maybe that's like Buds and Brigida. Because
That's his kryptonite.
Yeah, I think that it totally is. And so maybe Facility learns that because Buds can run the Hanzo pretty well. So maybe Facility needs to learn that because Buds on it is really, really underwhelming. And again, my note on here was that Fire was dying quite a lot here as well. So they need to first, 2 things for Envision: fix your support dying issue, figure that out. Crimson was phenomenal at getting kills, but he also died really early. And then figure out someone else to play Brigida, and then you should probably be pretty good from here on out. That is my very low level analysis of this team.
As much as Visality is looking good with the team, I gotta hold out hope that Jaru's gonna be back. I got to. He's only listed as inactive. You know, maybe he's summer vacation. Maybe he's not off of the team. Maybe I'll reach out to Chew and see if I can kind of work something out of him. But there was one note that I completely missed, and I wanted to bring up here because I love seeing him, and every time I see it, I gotta bring it up. But Fire went Bloodthirsty Mercy. It was on Ilios during Ruins. He pops Valk and comes up over the edge and finds the who was it? Enlar on Widow and just murders him. And then flies away like a little butterfly. It's like, yep, I'm the butterfly of death. I love I love seeing battle mercies in those like moments where you don't think you're gonna see one. So I just had to throw that out there. Congratulations, Fire. You did it again.
Yes, definitely. But that's where we see Envision get kicked down in the lower bracket, where they're gonna have to face Fusion University on the 10th. L&L is moving on. Good for them. But that does it for the latest round of matches. Now we're gonna move into our main discussion.
And right before we start the main discussion, I did get those dates. So we have the action is going to begin in July. We're going to start off with China starting July 1st. Australia picks up July 2nd along with Europe. North America starts July 3rd. What are you people doing to me? Korea starts July 4th. South America is July 5th. And then the Pacific region will start on July 6th. And then there's all kinds of other stuff that we will go over on our next episode, just so we can get all of that information out there for you guys.
And that is Contenders, by the way.
That is for Contenders. Now, we don't have an official trials date, so it's got to be fairly soon. I know
a week before, I would assume.
I know Liquipedia has it like the 9th of this month, but I don't think that's right. I really don't.
Yeah.
So as soon as we find out like an actual date, I think there's somebody in Discord I can kind of ask. I'll see if I can get an official date. But our main discussion is this spreadsheet. There's a spreadsheet that's going around that is the USA Overwatch World Cup invites that are being announced by themselves on Twitter. They're giving out information that Arrow said, hey, we're having private invites, closed invites. Nobody's going to know what's going on. And then Twitter blew up with people saying, I'm on Team George. All right, guys, let's keep secrets here.
Let's. I think we should kind of backtrack and kind of establish exactly what this. Basically, what Arrow said is that he is getting 25 players.
Yep.
He, Bare Hands, and Annalyn are all kind of, collaborating on this. That they are inviting 25 players, and they're doing 4 teams named after the 4 people on Mount Rushmore, which I think is hilarious.
It is genius.
You've got Team Teddy, you've got Team Thomas, you've got Team George, and Team Abraham or Lincoln. And so far, I'm just going to pull up what we have for Team Teddy Roosevelt is Dante, Zachary, Muma, question mark, so it's not guaranteed, Elk, and Sleepy. Team Thomas so far is just Sinatra, Gods, and Adam. Hashtag George Gang for George Washington's Hydration, Super, Cool Matt, and Raucous. Abraham is Silk Thread, Corey, and McGravy. And it's confirmed that Baby Bay and Goliath are in and got their invites, but we don't know yet. So we kind of... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so what we're going to talk about is just the people on that list that are Contenders players. We'll leave the speculation for the Overwatch League guys to the High Noon podcast. That's their forte. So Kyle, why don't we start off with the DPS players that we see on this list?
So one of the interesting ideas here is that you've got Zachary. Well, let's start with Zachary here. Um, he is a really good Tracer player, a better Widow and a better McCree. And then with his duo partner here is Dante, who is interesting in that he's also the Tracer player, but also plays the Sombra and the Genji. So this could be interesting. Obviously, this is not going to be. It's not going to be. I only team Theodore or only team Thomas or only team George or only team Abraham. It's going to be a mix of these. But I definitely do think that Zachary has the potential, and I asked this in the Discord earlier. I was thinking about what a good combination would be if the USA team brought in Siegel on one of those positions. Because he has that interesting hero pool that includes the diva as well, which would be really cool if you wanted to run like one of your DPS on Brigida, or you wanted to run just that actual goats comp. But you need someone who can play the Widowmaker and can play the Tracer if need be. And who can do that? Well, Zachary can. So I think if that's, I feel like that's a pretty good pairing I can imagine. And then, did you have something you wanted to say on Zachary?
Well, on not so much on Zachary right yet, but this format that they've come up with, it feels like we've seen this format. And where did we see this format? We saw it with the hometown hero.
Oh, yeah.
They took a bunch of teams, and then as the teams played each other, they picked out players and then formed a new team with the players that they picked out, and then the other players, went away.
It's almost as if Arrow was involved in both of these things.
It like you can clearly see Arrow has a plan and a structure on how he wants to do this. So like you said, we're not going to see Team George. Like if Team George is the winner, Team George might not be the same Team George that it started as. That's my theory. I don't have any inside information. But I mean, just in the time that we've been watching Zachary, the dude is insane. Now he's going up against some stiff competition. Like he's on the same team with, like you said, Dante. One of the other teams we heard Sinatra. So when it comes to Tracer players, there's a good amount of Tracer players in this group, in these groups that he's going up against. But I think he might have more flexibility. I think Zachary might be the more flexible, Tracer player. If we do see Tracer start to, fall off even more than she currently is, Zachary might be our guy. Kind of excited to see where that goes.
Definitely. And I do think he definitely has a better chance for this compared to Corey, who he's got like relatively the same hero pool. They've played like pretty much the same thing. Corey also has looked decent on the Widow, pretty good on the Tracer, on Gladiator's Legion. But I definitely do think Zachary definitely has had the better results and just the higher highs. We did mention that Zachary is kind of streaky. But I think that at least in terms of his Widow and McCree, I think he probably is around Baby Bay's level, if not maybe better. It's hard to know because I've never seen them play against each other, so I'm not going to definitively say that, he's better. But I think that it's definitely in the conversation. It's definitely a possibility that he is on that level or better, and that he would be I don't think anyone should be surprised if they pick up Zachary on this team. Actually for that spot, for the non-Tracer spot, because I think if they pick him up, he should not be playing Tracer because there are so many incredible Tracers, and his is good, really good, not incredible.
All right. So let's move down into tank line here. We see quite a bit more Contenders tanks than the DPS section. We've got McGravy's. Oh, nope. We have one more. I'm sorry, I miscounted that. We have McGravy, Gods, and Beast Halo. Now, none of these are main tanks, correct? These are all
Beast Halo
Oh, Beast
is.
Halo, yeah.
But I don't think Beast Halo was on the sheet, and then he got moved off, so I have no idea what his status is, so I don't know. But for sure, you've got 2 D.Va players.
And two pretty solid D.Va players. Gods was one of our top tanks when we were talking about, tank duos in Contenders. So, what are you thinking here?
I think they're both really good. Like, McGravy is a really good Roadhog and a really good D.Va. Gods is a really good D.Va and also can do the Roadhog pretty well as well. Not only that, is he like also able to play, if you need to, a bunch of other stuff. But for context, these guys are battling in a spot against Cool Matt and against Space. I don't think Space was confirmed in, but if he was not in, I would be so unbelievably surprised and kind of disappointed in Bare Hands and Arrow, because I think that the main topic is, do you take Cool Matt or do you take Space? I don't necessarily think that Gods or McGravy has a really good chance of taking the spot. I would love to see it, but at the same point, I don't really want to see it because I want USA to like actually win. And I think that McGravy and Gods, as of right now, are probably tier 1.5 at the highest in terms of like how good their off tank play is.
Yeah. No, with the tanks that they're going up against, I don't think that we have a good chance of getting a Contenders tank. It's unfortunate, but I mean, like you said, this is Team USA. I want to beat all the other teams. Like, go Merca. But with that, we're gonna go down to now. This is the section where I don't see one specific person, I'm gonna be disappointed. We're going to go down into the supports. And for the Contender supports, we've got Adam, Elk, and Goliath. And I'm gonna start off on this. Adam, fantastic Mercy player. He's got that bloodthirsty streak. We've seen him get a 2K with his Valkyrie and just say, I'm not gonna heal my team. I'm just gonna kill the other team. But I don't know if he's the best option for like that main support. But our boy Elk, like, I want to see some Ana nades, man. Like, how about you? What are you thinking?
So Adam, I have watched. He was on my first favorite Overwatch team, or at esports team ever, which was the OG NAC9. And he is incredibly experienced. He is one of the best ultimate trackers that I have heard of. He's very, very famous for that. He has quite a lot of lane experience, a lot of experience in general. I mean, heck, he was in the last Overwatch League World Cup, or Overwatch World Cup team. But I definitely think his latest performances make this a question mark. But that's why I'm glad that we're doing it this way and having the invite tryouts, because we know he's good, but we don't know how good he is as of recently. Elk, on the other hand, I think has not as long of a timeline, of course, but has been looking better recently. And I think that the reason that Elk, I think, has a slightly better chance, not only just because of recency bias, I think his Lucio and Mercy are about on the same level as Adams was when it was at its highest. But his Ana is also like, it's always going to be his, like, ace up his sleeve, or whatever the term is. It is like, his Ana is reminiscent. I don't know if it's not necessarily on the same level as like your Chips and Jaehung Anas, but it feels like that. It gives me that nostalgia of like seeing really good Ana play. That, and as we have discovered last week, the dude is super intelligent when it comes to game knowledge.
Crazy smart. Like, his game sense is amazing.
I was trying to keep up. Like I have obviously like my in-game skill is not the best, but my like knowledge and understanding of how the game works in a team structure, I think it's decent. But man, I had to like sprint to try to keep up with what he was saying and try to understand what he was saying because first he talks kind of fast,
Yeah.
but he's also extremely knowledgeable and has lots of incredible information. So I think that I would honestly put him over Moth, who is fighting for that same spot. Same with Pooks, same with Avast. I think that he's just definitely in that spot. I, I like, and I hope he gets the spot, and I hope people don't say it's just because Arrow used to be his coach, because the dude definitely deserves a spot, and more so, I think that he, like this, if he does get on this team, he'll more than likely be on a expansion team or on a non-expansion team this next season for OWL.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And then there's Goliath, who I said would be kind of cool to see. But same thing with Adam. Like, I don't know how good he is. He was on a pretty good team with Elk back in the day. In Eastwind, he was on XL2 and is doing pretty good. Gets a couple of good kills, but he's also going up against Raucus and Sleepy, who aren't necessarily the best Zens in the world, but they're pretty good too. So I think he's got a shot, but not necessarily a huge shot.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you think about it and you watch what Sleepy's doing, and Raucus isn't at the same level he was last World Cup, but I think he's still a little bit above where Goliath is. There's some of these guys just haven't, you know, kind of went up to that next level. Now, that's not saying that they go into these tryouts and they perform phenomenally and outperform their OWL counterparts. That very well could happen. But man, like, and it's crazy because the two that we both feel have the best chance are both Fusion University players. um is there a little bit of a bias from, you know, Arrow bringing them on to try out? You know, I mean, you got, just in this, we have three. We have Zachary, Beast Halo, and Elk. You know, half of Fusion University is in the tryouts. I really do think that out of all three of them, Elk probably has the highest shot, followed by Zachary. Um, there's just better tanks in OWL. If a Contenders tank makes it, it won't be Beast Halo. It'll probably be McGravy, with a very, very, very close second for Gods. But they have the hardest fight, you know, in these tryouts. But did you have anything else on this?
That is it for me.
That's about it for me also. So we are going to wrap this up. As always, we are looking for the Twitch followers. As of right now, we're sitting at 49 Twitch followers. We need 50 to be qualified for Twitch affiliate. We need one. Swing by Twitch if you are an audio listener. Make an account. It's free. Hit the follow button. And if you are the 50th follower, you'll get a special shout out. I'm going to find little party music. I'm going to play it under your name. But you got to be the 50th. And I'll know. I got this little thing that tells me when people sub. Other than that, we need iTunes reviews. So stop by iTunes after you stop by Twitch and just give us a little review. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. What we can fix. What you would like to see more of. We will take all of your criticism, you know, either good or bad, and we will see what we can do with it. But other than that, that's going to be the end of the show. Kyle, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Kyle the Winner, winner spelled WYNNER. You can also find me at Twitch. I will probably be streaming later tonight. I will probably need to take a pause for the Battle of Texas game because that would be sick.
Oh yeah.
But other than that, I will probably be streaming a little bit of Conan Exiles here pretty soon. What about you? Where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Thornrayne. You can find me on Twitch at Thornrayne, but I do the majority of my streaming on the Blackwatch Report Twitch. But really, other than that, that's about it where you can find me. Now, where you can find the show, you can find the show on Twitter at Blackwatch Report. There's no O in report. You can email the show, blackwatchreport@gmail.com. You can follow the show on Twitch, twitch.tv/blackwatchreport. We record live Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Our intro music is the main theme song for Overwatch, covered by none other than our fantastic Mr. Kyle Wynn. This has been a High Noon production. You can find all of our shows over at www.highnoonpodcast.com, and you can come and chat with me and Kyle and all of the other hosts, Blevins, Deathblow, A. Smith, and our newest host, Taco, over on the Discord, and that is at discord.me/highnoonpodcast. And with that, Blackwatch out.